This is the Voice of Russia. The London Bureau of the Voice of Russia is now live on digital radio and online, with news, comment and debate on weekdays between 4 and 7 p.m.
You're listening to the Voice of Russia in the heart of London. I'm Tim Walklate with our final special discussion show on Euro 2012. Both semi-finals have now been played and Spain will play Italy in the final on Sunday evening. By that time, the champions of Europe will be crowned, topping off what's been a fantastic festival of sport. There were fears that issues off the pitch, such as allegations of racial abuse at players from the crowd, would mar matters on the field, but an exceptional tournament has let football do the talking. Joining me in the studio is Philippe Auclaire, a football writer and broadcaster and the UK correspondent for France Football magazine and RMC Radio, and Andrew Warshaw, chief football correspondent for Insideworldftootball.biz, and on the phone Sasha Goryunov, a blogger and journalist who's written for such publications as When Saturday Comes. So, gentlemen, thank you for coming. The tournament is almost over. The final is set, and we've seen one of the best European championships in recent years. This Sunday, reigning world and European champions Spain will face four-time World Cup and one-time European Championship winners Italy at Kiev's Olympic Stadium. On Wednesday night, Spain beat a defiant Portuguese team on penalties after neither team could score after 120 minutes of play. And here's what Spain's coach Vicente Del Bosque had to say ahead of the final at the press conference on Thursday.
We work in sport, in football, and we have been in it for so many years. We feel proud about what we are doing. We really hope that we can achieve what has never been done before. That would be great for everyone in the Spanish game and also for Spain itself. I think there are signs of progress. I hope that what is happening in Spanish sport can give a leg up to our society.
So, Philippe, impressions of Spain? I mean, not always been at their best this tournament, have they?
Yeah, sketches of Spain. Sketchy Spain. They haven't been at their best. I think they're at the fact that they're in that final is in itself an extraordinary achievement, and I think something that we should insist on, even if the performances haven't been necessarily that convincing. Only 4 teams previously had played 3 major finals on the trot. The great Uruguayan side of the 1930s who played who won the Olympic Games 24-28 and the World Cup in 30, when the Olympic Games were the only international competition worthy of that name. The great German team of the early 70s and the Brazil of the 1990s. So you're really talking about the top level of international football. But on the other hand, I think they're a bit lucky to be there. They had a huge scare against Croatia and haven't certainly produced the kind of football we had hoped they would produce in that competition.
Andrew?
I think a lot of what Philippe says is right. I mean, I thought at the start of the tournament, I had a hunch that Spain would go out before the final, if only because of law of averages. Getting to the final 3 consecutive times, as Philippe says, pretty rare. This policy of playing without an out-and-out striker, we really haven't seen it very often. Whether or not that's contributed to Spain not being at their best, I'm not sure, but boy, do they keep the ball well, as we've seen on many occasions. And defensively, they've been awesome. I'm not sure they've been that lucky. I'm not sure from the teams they've played if any of them merit being in the final instead of them, though I would concede that I think Croatia overall have been the unluckiest team in the tournament.
Sasha, it's been reported greatly in the past kind of few weeks that they've come under quite a lot of criticism. I mean, similar, to be honest, to what Arsenal suffered a few years ago, playing attractive passing football, but they've also been accused of as boring. I mean, would you agree with that sentiment? Have they been boring?
No, well, the thing is, I mean, teams set out to block them, so I think it almost becomes a necessity for them to have the patient build-up and to almost look boring to try to draw teams out. I mean, for example, against Portugal, I think Portugal played tactically a fantastic game, and it made for a very, very poor spectacle for a neutral, because they neutralized Spain almost completely. And it was only in extra time that when Portugal tied a little bit, that Spain got a bit of space, and that they had the chance to win perhaps the game. And I think, if anything, perhaps the way that Spain and Barcelona play perhaps made other teams a lot more tactically astute than they would be in the past. And I would also comment on this tournament as well. I think Spain are carrying a passenger in midfield, because I think Xavi has had a very, very poor tournament, perhaps as a result of his injuries in the long season. So perhaps that hasn't helped them either.
I was just going to say, listening to Sasha, maybe we're in a situation where Spain, even not being at their best, are a darn sight better than anybody else. Even if they're only playing at sort of 75, 80%. Don't forget, 19 competitive games unbeaten since losing their opening match. Philippe will correct me if I'm wrong. 2010 World Cup against Switzerland. I don't think they've lost since then. Maybe they're just a lot better than even playing up 70, 80% than other teams. And we were talking earlier very quickly about Real Madrid and Barcelona. One big difference: they have the two best strikers in the world between them in Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Of course, Spain haven't got.
Looking at the final, is it going to be kind of continuing what they've done mostly throughout the tournament, with flooding the midfield, and effectively this could cancel out Pirlo, couldn't it? I mean, if they play.
Did you see that group game? Did you have a feeling that Italy were cancelled out? I didn't have that feeling at all. I must say, I'm very jealous of Sasha, who is in Rome at the moment, because I wish I had been in Rome last night. It must have been something extraordinary.
We went in the very centre, but we were out in the Trastevere, just having dinner there and watching it with the locals. But even then, the atmosphere was absolutely superb.
When you say Italy, who have been by far, and personal opinion, the best team in this tournament, the most entertaining to watch, the most simpatico, which is quite extraordinary when you think of all the problems that this team has been carrying coming before the tournament, who have found an extraordinary spirit, and also have been the most joyful team to watch. And they really caused problems to Spain in their group games. Now, of course, it was in a configuration with a strikerless Spain playing against a back three. Are we going to have the same kind of thing? Is Prandelli going to go back to the back three when you see the performance that they delivered with the back four afterwards? Is Del Bosque going to think, well, maybe this time I should play? Well, who knows? We've seen Negredo. Maybe we should see Llorente this time. We don't know. It's fascinating. I don't think it's going to be a locked final at all, because Italy won't play a locked kind of football.
Let's just have a quick chat about Portugal. Credit where it's due. They played incredibly well in this tournament, and in the Portuguese press, it's been relatively positive in defeat. Good tournament for Portugal, Andrew.
Yeah. I think most of us were pleasantly surprised, weren't we, that Portugal got to the semis? Although I don't think till my dying day I will ever get over their choice of penalty takers in the order they were. I mean, if you've got the best player in the world or the second best player in the world and you're taking penalties, I know Fabregas was going to, had this idea of I want to take the last one, but are we honestly being led to believe that they kept Cristiano Ronaldo to the end because they thought it was going to be the decisive penalty kick? Well, maybe, but if that's the case, goodness knows how they came across that strategy in the first place, because if you've got a player like that, you either, surely, for goodness sake, he either starts or maybe takes the fourth one.
I think 8 times out of 10 in competition, it never goes to the last penalty.
Is that right?
Absolutely. It's insane. The most important penalties in any penalty shootout are the first and the fourth.
Well,
and statistically, it has been established, and over a number of games, and all the data don't seem to suggest, they show that these are the penalties that matter the most, and the fourth being the most important.
So what's behind it? Are we talking ego? I want to be the person who scores the winning spot kick for Portugal. I mean, it's just quite remarkable.
Such me.
And of course, don't forget, we had the Nani Bruno Alves error in the build-up to this. That could hardly have instilled confidence into the Portuguese spot kick takers.
They've been neither fish nor fowl, the Portuguese. I mean, they've been in some games they were terrific against Spain. They were absolutely magnificent
in the first half,
but didn't register a single shot on goal, on target. But in the group games, they really struggled against a limited, very brave but limited Danish side. Could have gone either way, as we know. Varela just the substitute did the business for them. Suddenly we thought that Ronaldo was back on song. Then we realized maybe he's not quite on song. They've probably overachieved compared to what we were expecting and what thought that they would do, but they might have some regrets. They had the right game plan against Spain, and they didn't quite have the resources, despite having 2 more days of rest than the Spaniards, to go to see that game plan through.
And let's not forget that, about 20 minutes into their both the final game of that group B, they were potentially going out of the tournament. Indeed. With Denmark coming in in second place.
Indeed.
Just to remind you, you're listening to The Voice of Russia in London with me, Tim Walklate, on our final special discussion show on Euro 2012. Joining me in the studio is Philippe Auclaire, a football writer and broadcaster and the UK correspondent for France Football magazine and RMC radio, and Andrew Warshaw, chief football correspondent for Insideworldftootball.biz, and on the phone from Rome, Sasha Goryunov, a blogger and journalist who's written for such publications as When Saturday Comes. Italy forced their way into the final on Thursday evening, beating tournament favourites Germany 2-1 on the night with a Mario Balotelli brace. And let's hear the views of some Italian and German fans who were at the match last night.
Didn't think we'd win because the Germans are strong, but thank God Balotelli was there for us.
To meet the Germans in another semi-final and to beat them again, that's always great. They've never beaten us.
In the first half, our defence made 2 massive errors that gave Italy easy goals. We tried to come back in the second half, but we missed too many chances.
Germany played really badly. Italy were better. We have to admit it and congratulate the opposition.
Italy, they actually managed to play very attractive football and be incredibly strong at the back, which I don't think we saw so much on Sunday night, did we, Andrew?
Good point. I mean, if there's ever a bogey team in international football, it's Italy for the poor Germans. I mean, 8 competitive matches, even when they were West Germany, Philippe, remember? Yep. They just cannot beat them. And I think I'd be amazed if... They'd never admit it, but they must have gone out on the pitch thinking, crikey, are we going to get this monkey off our back?
It's a bit like penalties for England, isn't it?
Well, it's very, very similar. You're quite right. But there are other elements, of course. I mean, it's no surprise that I think and correct me if I'm wrong again, I think the back 5 of Italy, or 4 of the back 5 of Italy, all play for Juventus. Who've just won the title, of course. Now, that Philippe mentioned collectivity earlier. Now, boy, if there's ever an element of the kind of club mentality within a national team, defensively, that's it for Italy. I think 3 goals so far conceded in the competition. Then, of course, Mr. Pirlo. And I think we'll probably agree that the most potent strike force in the competition with Balotelli and Cassano.
It's extraordinary. And this is the team that just before the tournament conceded 3 goals against Russia. And then suddenly the tournament arrives and this is different. They also, if you look at their midfield, there is no defensive midfielder in there. There is nobody that you can think of doing the work of a Busquets, or doing the work of a Scott Parker, or even a Sami Khedira. No.
The bin man, as I like to call him.
Yes, but they don't have all the Alou Diarra or whatever. And they also the element of risk. I mean, I don't know, I sound like I'm in love with this team. It's because I am. They have an element of creativity and imagination and risk-taking in that midfield when they look for passes, which I haven't seen for such a long time.
I wonder if they'll take the same risks against Spain. I'm really not sure about that. But what, I mean... When you look at how Italy were coming into the tournament, I think it was 3, maybe 4 warm-up games they lost, not just the game against Russia. And then, of course, off the pitch, the match-fixing scandal, with the Prime Minister even saying at one point, well, if you want us to pull out of the tournament, we will. I mean, has there ever been a team under that kind of pressure getting to the final of a major tournament?
Italy in 2006.
Well, of course, well, maybe then the moral of the story is once they get together collectively on the pitch, they say, right, we're going to show you what we really like.
Isn't it interesting as well how, teams from countries which are going through such hard times, you name them, Greece, Portugal, Italy, Spain, have all performed as well or better than we were expecting them to do.
That's why we love football, Philippe.
And do you think, Sasha, I mean, they've defensively in I'd say the first 20 minutes against England, they were shaky, and potentially if Danny Welbeck had his the correct boots on, it could have been 2 or 3-0 to England potentially if they'd taken their chances. That Glenn Johnson chance.
The thing is with them defensively, I think they have been switching systems, and they switched the system for the England game, didn't they? So perhaps it takes a bit of time to get settled and to get used to it again. And again, against Germany, it was another defensive reshuffle as well. I mean, they had Chiellini playing left back, and so perhaps they need a bit of familiarity. But once they got into the groove, and once Pirlo swore off the ball, and basically the defense doesn't come under so much pressure, and I think they'll look a lot better, and fairly settled to me.
And lots of pundits have been saying that Pirlo's legs are going to go at some point. Is he just basically the Duracell bunny? Sasha?
Well, the thing is, I mean, how his legs going to go? I mean, he's not a Steven Gerrard. I don't think his game is not based on herring around the pitch. I think his game is based more on intelligence and more measured passing. And I think obviously the Germans would have seen what happened when I think when Rooney was supposed to put some pressure on Pirlo in the England game, and he just didn't do so. So they had Kroos and Özil, I think, who were supposed to try to put some pressure on Pirlo last night, and again they didn't do so. So I mean, how Spain are going to approach this? Who are they going to have as the man who's trying to mark Pirlo out of the game?
Any solutions, gentlemen?
Maybe they'll put Busquets on him, but then if they do that, does that then take away some of their own ball retention? Very interesting.
Well, Busquets, that would mean Busquets would have to play a far more advanced position. But the obvious thing for Pirlo, but again, people have been trying that for years and nobody's ever succeeded, is to have a centre forward who drops back when the team is not in possession and takes care of the deep playing playmaker with Pirlo. So it was Rooney's, it was 9.5. Dropping back, and you could think maybe if he played a play like Negredo or Llorente, it would be his job to drop back and to try at least to cut off the supply. I can't see, there's nobody. It's not something that Spain are doing, and I was really struck against Portugal. They didn't try to press up the pitch at all.
No.
It's very unusual. Normally you would see Iniesta going at people, you would see Xavi going at people. I think physically they can't do it. They're a little bit too tired to have this kind of high-octane pressing game at this stage of the competition. And Pirlo, being Pirlo, all he does, he moves 3 yards away and suddenly he's got space. And he needs so little space and so little time to find the right pass that, in a way, you're negating your own strength and you're doing something worse. You have to find a balance. You've got to limit his influence. At the same time, you don't want to overcome it to limit this influence. Nobody's resolved that equation yet.
Were you surprised by yesterday's result?
I had a bet on Italy.
You devil! You're going to tell us how much you won?
Not much. It was a small pound. I looked at the odds and I thought, this is ridiculous. You can't have odds like that. It's like you can't have 3-1 and 4-1 in a game like that. And also, I believed in this Italian team, but I didn't believe it to the extent that of what we saw, the demonstration we saw in the first 45 minutes, which honestly was magnificent. Took the breath away. Really.
By the kind of the 80-minute mark, the Germans were just out of it completely, weren't they, Andy?
I don't think they knew what to, I think they were completely shell-shocked by what happened to them. I mean, this is a team that won every game in qualifying. They won every game going into the Italian game. Was Joachim Löw, who I've got enormous respect for, right to tinker with the team yet again? Bringing in Kroos and we know eventually taking him off to do a job on Pirlo, which didn't happen. Bringing in, sorry about this, Philippe, Podolski, who's about to join Philippe's beloved Arsenal. But if he's as anonymous when he plays for Arsenal as he was last night, it'll be money not well spent. I mean, defensively as well, I've never been completely. I did expect Germany to win the game last night, but I did expect, but only because of what I'd seen before. Though it has to be said that I've never been convinced in this competition by Germany defensively. Greece scored twice against them. Let's not forget that. I think every other team virtually did as well, and really Badstuber and his colleagues got exploited badly by Italy.
Well, they've got a problem of balance because, first of all, there's the position. They've got this left-back problem, which so many teams have, and they play Philippe Lahm there. which means you've got Boateng on the other side, and Bachstuber, I'm still maintaining, I'm really not convinced. And all my German friends say, no, he's a terrific player, but also, I mean, and okay, they got Hummels with such an elegant player, but who was at fault on Italy's first goal, and they don't have many. They have loads of various of alternatives up front, Reus, Klose, Gomez and so forth. You look at the back and you're thinking they have a big problem if it's not working on the night. They can't make changes there. They really can't.
But they're young, Philippe. Youngest team in the tournament.
They're young.
Eventually, I'm sure this team will come good.
Yeah.
Okay, they haven't won anything since, 1996. But
it's starting to become a little bit of a problem.
You're
because
right.
You're starting to think, are they one of those so-called golden generations that promises and promises and promises and actually never quite delivers?
Like Portugal were.
Do you think his tinkering in the Greece game possibly disrupted the flow a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to say Italy played particularly well. I think the Kroos introduction kind of maybe made sense on paper, but that possibly caused a disruption in the midfield.
Yeah.
So and then when they actually had to go for the game, they didn't have the players, they didn't have the tactics.
Just to remind you, you're listening to the Voice of Russia in London. Let's move away from Euro 2012 for just a few minutes and look briefly ahead of the next championships, which will be held in 4 years' time in France. And let's hear the moment when the French won the right to host Euro 2016.
And now the only thing that remains to be done, Mr. President, is to announce the winner of the Euro 2016, to stage the Euro 2016. Thank you.
If you didn't quite catch that was Michel Platini saying France. So France 2016 will have a different format to previous championships with 24 rather than 16 teams competing. A lot of pundits have praised this tournament for the high level of competition exhibited in this tournament. Now, will that now be lost with the format being expanded, Philippe?
Yes. I mean, it's yes. There's no other answer than yes. You're going to get weaker teams. You're going to get group phases in which there are going to be dead rubbers, which we didn't have. The same thing is going to happen to the Euros as happened to the World Cup. I think I see Andrew nodding because it's something that the World Cup has gone down in level consistently over the years. When is the last great World Cup, you would think, Andrew? Truly great one.
Well, Germany was pretty good, Philippe.
It was good, but maybe not for the football. I would say 1982 for me is a tournament in terms of the quality of the football played was exceptional. 2006 was excellent in terms of the atmosphere and some of the games we saw and wonderful experience. But as soon as you expand the competition, of course, you dilute the level. And some of the explanations that were given by Mr. Platini and by his assistants, saying that this way they would make sure that teams which should be good enough to participate in this tournament will be there. And they named amongst these teams Norway, Slovenia and Lithuania as being great footballing nations. This is really, really not serious at all an approach. And also it might be counterproductive. The receipts depend on television and the interest that there is. It's not because you multiply the number of games that you're necessarily going to make sure that you make more money out of it. 16 is perfect. It's a concentrated tournament. It's nervy. It's tense, and the football is so much better.
Andrew?
Can't really add to Philippe's excellent summation, except to say, I mean, I was there when France were pulled out of the hat, and the look on some of the faces of their competitors, notably one, were as ashen as Joachim Low must have felt last night. But I mean, all kinds of allegations of skullduggery, and there always are with these bids. And what role did Platini play in France getting it, etc., etc. But Philippe on the field, Philippe is right. UEFA were under pressure, huge pressure from the middle-ranked nations to expand this. Those of us who are old enough to remember straight knockout the European Cup, we're never going to have that back, and we're never going to have the kind of competitive Euro back that we've got now. Finally,
gentlemen, I'd like to round off this discussion by hearing your thoughts on some of the best aspects of the tournament. And first of all, your performance of the tournament so far, Andrew.
First 45 minutes, Italy last night. As a whole game, I suppose you probably have to say Italy as well last night, because they did surprise a lot of people, but for 45 minutes, just quite extraordinary.
Philippe?
I was going to go for the same thing, but I'm going to say Italy, the first 45 minutes or first 60 minutes against Spain as well were absolutely terrific. And then, but otherwise, yes, Italy, Germany, I think it is obviously the standout performance of the tournament so far.
Sasha?
And I would like to echo that because in the days running up to the tournament, running up to the semi-final, the Italian television was showing, the past victories over Germany, and there was obviously the semi-final in 2006, which was the game of the tournament. And I think for this tournament, it's the same. I think this semi-final will go down as the game of the tournament. However, for me, I thought Croatia were absolutely excellent against Spain, despite the fact that they lost the final group game.
Which leads me quite nicely onto surprise package of the tournament.
I had them here, Croatia.
Yeah.
Nobody was expecting them like this. Great deal. I think that the admiration and respect we have for Slaven Bilic as a manager and after what he did with that team, I'm absolutely amazed that nobody has had the idea of poaching him, and that he will go to Lokomotiv Moscow now.
Andrew?
I loved Croatia. I'm afraid I'm not sure whether the general public will remember them with the same affection that we do as a surprise package, because they didn't get as far as they should have done. But also, of course, you have to say Greece in terms of getting out of the group stage. I think that was I don't think anybody would have predicted that Greece would have done that. Before we finish, I think we should talk. We must throw in biggest disappointment, because once again the Dutch were just what's the word? Talk about underachieving in the tournament. Everyone's favourites to reach the semis, I think, but same old story.
And Sasha, surprise package.
I'm afraid I have to go Croatia again, because very, very admirable tactically, and it's just very admirable performances, really. And I think as the tournament panned out, the two teams from the group that's progressed are in the final, so I think that consider themselves very, very unlucky.
And difficult one, this. Player of the tournament, Sasha?
Andrea Pirlo.
Can't disagree with that.
Philippe?
Very hard to disagree with that. No,
you have to. Italy, your team, Philippe.
You have to. You have to. I mean, you would say maybe no. You wouldn't be sincere if you said anybody else.
Well, the Croatian striker was pretty good.
Mandzukic had a great tournament.
Finally, Sasha, who's going to win?
Spain.
Philippe?
Italy?
Andrew?
1-0 Spain.
It's too close to call, though, isn't it?
I think it is. Now it is, after the semis.
Okay, well, that's all we've got time for. You've been listening to The Voice of Russia in London, to a special discussion show on Euro 2012 with me, Tim Walklate. Joining me in the studio today was Philippe Auclaire, a football writer and broadcaster and the UK correspondent for France Football magazine and RMC Radio, Andrew Warshaw, chief football correspondent for Insideworldftootball.biz, and on the phone, Sasha Goryunov, a blogger and journalist who's written for such publications as When Saturday Comes. Stay tuned for the news, which is up next.